Listen, I'm Jack Dempsey, there's no one like me. I'm from Nairclaw. There's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous, my defense is impregnable. And I'm just ferocious, I want your heart, I want to eat his children. I was going to rip his heart out, I'm the best ever.
And welcome to the Boxed Out Podcast. This is Mo doing a little bit solo. So in a way, I'm like Shumanov when he fought against Hopkins. I'm going back to the corner of this podcast, instructing myself on what to do, rolling solo. And hopefully it turns out a little bit better because Shumanov got schooled. He got his ass kicked a little bit by the old man. So, yeah, there's that. Anyway, what's up, fellas? And ladies, too. I doubt there's any women that listen to this podcast. But anyway, I am here to talk about the recap, Adrien Broner, the problem Broner, versus Mikey Garcia. Obviously, Broner didn't end up being a problem for Garcia. And if he was a problem, he was a very simple problem, like 1 + 1 or 4 divided by 2. Just simple, basic fundamentals, your memory skills, get you home, and the problem solved pretty much. And the problem was solved probably around the 3rd or 4th round, probably, I'd say. But anyway, Mikey Garcia improves to 37-0. He put out probably the best performance of his career, and it was in Brooklyn at Barclays in front of an estimated 12,084 fans. Sorry about that. You know, it's hard. You don't normally say 12,084. But anyway, yeah. So it was a great performance by Mikey Garcia. And there's a lot of stuff to get into about this fight. I mean, we could just be brief and just say that Mikey was great, Broner wasn't so great, but you know, there's always stuff to talk about. So let's just talk about the opening to the fight and how Garcia kind of won the fight early. Out to open early in the fight, Garcia already had Broner beat in the battle of ring generalship. He was controlling the action. He had the plan. He knew what he wanted to do. He came out taking the lead while Broner mostly tried to be defensive, tried to move around the ring, and tried to evade Garcia's attack. But Garcia really in that opening round, he wasn't even looking to attack. He was more so just being aggressive and coming forward and feinting a lot. And that's the thing. And it was smart because if you know Broner and you've watched a lot of his fights, Broner he doesn't look comfortable on defense. I mean, he can evade some punches, he can slip some shots, but if you just attack him and make him focus on defense, and it's weird too because he does like to counterpunch, but if you give him a consistent attack or flurry of punches, Broner won't counter back. He'll just look to play defense and move out of the way or grab or, you know, just get out of range. And I thought Garcia did an excellent job of keeping Broner busy. And it's just, I don't know. I guess it's because Broner's always compared himself to Floyd Mayweather and saying he's the next Floyd Mayweather. So he tries the shoulder roll, but he's really not. I mean, he is effective at times, but he's not Floyd Mayweather. And it would be best if he would just fight his own style or come up with his own style because to me, it just obviously looked like he's stuck in between styles. He even tried to mimic Mayweather fighting Mikey Garcia, you know, who is of Mexican-American descent, coming out in the red, white, and green. How Mayweather came out in the red, white, and green versus De La Hoya. You know, he always tries to mimic Floyd in some way, and if he mimicked Floyd's work ethic, maybe he'd be a lot farther along in his career, but I digress. But look, by the 3rd or 4th round, Mikey's already being busier. He's already landing first. He's digging body shots here and there, subtle body shots. I mean, you know him. I know Broner feels them. Broner can take him because he's a tough guy, but, they're scoring blows, and these are the things that win rounds. And all we got from Broner is him blocking some shots, taking some clean shots, shaking his head. His offense was mostly flash. He did occasionally land his jab on Mikey, but he never followed up with it. And I don't know, it just didn't seem there was a method to his madness. He never really went out on a full-out attack and let his hands go. And we've all noted in previous performances that Broner's just he's not active enough, and that's why we couldn't pick him. I couldn't pick him personally to win this fight just because he can be outworked. And then even in the Granados fight, like I noted earlier, I stated on Twitter and in the podcast that Granados did a decent job of boxing and moving out of range of Broner, because Broner's not really comfortable on the attack, or maybe he was when he was at a lighter weights, but now that he's moved up, he's just not comfortable on the attack and being the aggressor. But one main thing about this fight and what it really came down to, and it's fundamental. Boxing at its core, it's usually about distance and positioning. Mikey Garcia the entire night was in position, and he was at the right distance to let his hands go. He never seemed to be reaching for Broner. Broner himself, he couldn't establish the right distance. He always seemed to be reaching in. And as a result, he was just forgive me, he was out of position. And Mikey is in a stance, in a position to counter Broner. When Broner tried to lead, there was early in the fight, maybe one of the earlier rounds, the first 4 rounds, Broner leads with like a jab to the body, or it was a jab to the head. But as he pulls back, Mikey's in perfect position, and he just lands a nice left hook that clips Broner right on the chin. Now, Broner took it well, but that would just goes to show you that his positioning was excellent. And Broner knows. Broner's not a dumb fighter. He knows when the position's not there, and that's why we didn't see Broner lead as much, because he knew Mikey was there to counter. And, if Broner's not going to be aggressive from a distance, or not effective from distance, or not able to be effective from distance due to Mikey Garcia, then that's your ball game, especially if Broner's not going to take the initiative and, walk forward and make it a phone booth type of a fight. Maybe he wasn't able to get in the position to do that because of Mikey's, gauge of the distance and his jab and just being alert defensively and ready to fire back when Broner came in. But here's the thing. If Broner's going to come in behind a high guard and take all of these shots anyway, when Garcia's landing, take those few shots coming in and, position yourself to get on the inside and let your hands go. And he never did that. And that was a big problem. He just wasn't active enough, and it's the story of his career. Mikey was just landing the cleaner shots, and he had direction. He had a purpose of what he's doing. And Mikey's very steady. I mean, he's Mr. Steady. He's Mr. Consistent. He's like that classic hitter in the majors that just has great hitting fundamentals. He's in control of everything. Every swing is precise. Every punch is precise. It's impactful. It has meaning. And it's linear. It's going straight. It's compact. It's getting to its target. So, Mikey, he definitely showed his skill. He showed his class last night. And that's the key to being a really good boxer, too, that we'll bring up with Mikey Garcia. He's not known as a guy that likes to throw a lot of punches. That was one of the things coming into the fight that I said, you know what? Broner, he might have somewhat of a chance because Mikey's not overly active. He's more of a counterpuncher. But Mikey has a high boxing IQ. And Mikey is smart enough to know, hey, Broner is lazy in rounds. There's pockets where he won't throw. So in those pockets, a la when he was on the ropes, let my hands go. Let me dig to the body. Even if I'm not scoring clean all the time, I'm going to be throwing and landing, and that's the ball game. That's where the judges are going to have to score. Even if you're not landing clean all the time, which he did do a good job of landing some clean shots. Broner did block a lot of shots too, a lot of jabs and 1-2s from Garcia. But Garcia, he's so firm and well planted when he throws that some of those were just piercing through Broner's guard and catching him. And you could see after the fight, Broner had swelling on both sides of his face. Not a lot, but, there was some swelling. So, that just goes to show that Mikey Garcia is a class boxer. And the fundamentals will get you a long way. And beating Broner it's not, I don't want to say it's easy, but hell, Mikey made it look easy. It's just about being consistent, being first, and making them defend. Because somewhere along the lines, I don't know. I just feel like Broner is lost. He's stuck in between styles. He wants to be defensive at times, but when he's defensive, he's not being offensive enough. And then when he's leading and coming forward, he's still not throwing enough. So it's like he doesn't want to full sell out. He doesn't want to go extremely defensive and continually move because he just doesn't have because his footwork, he's kind of flat-footed, but, he still moved around pretty good last night, but he's not fully committed to moving around for 12 rounds, or maybe he's not conditioned to. So that's a negative with that style. And the style with coming forward, he's not conditioned enough, or he's not adept or skilled enough with his footwork, once again, at cutting off the ring and being the aggressor and throwing a high volume of punches. Because honestly, there were spots in this fight, some of these rounds, Garcia's just being a little bit busier. He was the better fighter, and he is the better fighter. He's the smarter fighter, the better boxer. And Broner definitely got outboxed. But there's times where, just coming up in the high guard, coming forward, applying pressure and throwing punches, it can give trouble to boxers. It can. We've seen it plenty of times, but Broner's just not adept at doing that, I guess. Look, Garcia, he outworked Broner by a huge margin. The only round that Broner outthrew Garcia was in the first round. And that was it was 26 punches thrown by Broner to 13 landed by Garcia. And that was just the fill-out round. So, and then even then, Mikey probably won that round because he landed a couple of hard shots. You could be generous and give that round to Broner or score for Broner, but even then, even barely throwing, Garcia still pretty much won that round, as he won the majority of the rounds. I believe the scorecards, what were the official scorecards for this fight? They had it 117-111, 116-112, and 116-112. I don't, the right man won, so that's good. But honestly, just looking, I think I had it about 10 rounds to 2. Maybe I'm being, no. I thought the fight was very plain and obvious to see. Mikey outworked him in all of the rounds mostly. And he was more effective, and he landed the cleaner blows, and he was the aggressor, and that won him the fight. The punch totals: Broner, 400 punches thrown for the 12 rounds. Mikey Garcia, 783 punches thrown. And here's the telling stat: Broner's corner is imploring him to fight and to be more aggressive and to let his hands go. And in the 9th round, he kind of came on a bit. He kind of came on a little bit in the second half of the fight, so I'll give him credit for that, but it still wasn't enough. And here's the telling stat. Knowing that going into the 12th round that he's way behind in the cards, or would appear to be way behind in the cards, and needs a knockout, Broner throws 44 punches. Mikey Garcia threw 115 punches in the 12th round. You tell me who wanted to win the fight more. You tell me. Broner's a tough guy, and saying he'll be there, and he's willing to lay it on the line when his back's against the wall. Well, 12th round, you really didn't do that. And it's just interesting. The show stats in terms of the percentages were close. The jabs were 22% to 20%. That was in favor of Broner. 45% to 46%. Power shots, that favor was in Garcia. And total punches landed, they were even at 31% each. But once again, Garcia more active. I mean, he threw 383 more punches than Broner. And he kept Broner on the defensive. He kept him confused, and he kept him guessing. And Broner's a smart fighter. He's a lot of amateur fights, a lot of pro fights. He's been in with a lot of good opponents. If you can get Broner's respect, make him think twice, and that's where you can capitalize on him and win rounds. And this was a fairly easy fight for Mikey. I do feel like he was a little bit tired towards the back end of the fight, and that when Broner came on a little bit, he felt some of those body shots. I think he felt a left hook maybe, or was it a right hand? And Broner landed some good jabs, but it just wasn't enough. At that point, Garcia knows what he needs to do to win the fight, and it's over. It's ball game. So what's next, I guess, for Mikey Garcia? Well, Mikey Garcia has a lot of options. He has a lot of options. And he was very confident coming into the fight because he talked about all those possibilities in the lead up to this fight. It's almost like he knew that this would be easy work, which it was for him, and that he could go ahead and make plans. He's already was talking about maybe staying at 140, maybe going up to 147. He's saying he still wants to go down to 135 and unify the titles in a clash with Linares. So there's a lot of options for Mikey Garcia. This was a great performance. It would have been even sweeter if you were able to get the knockout, but this a little bit better. I mean, he dominated Broner. And Broner has never been, well, Maidana did rough him up a bit, but he took some damage in that fight. Garcia took little to no damage, and he damn near pitched a shutout. Broner got a couple of rounds in, maybe, if you're being generous. The judges, I thought, were extremely generous to Broner. But yeah, Garcia has a lot of options. He's still a promotional free agent. He did say that fighters would have to come to Showtime to fight him, so I don't know. But Linares is with Golden Boy. Linares is going to fight actually on HBO in September. So I'm thinking maybe that fight's not in the plans right now. But they'll find something. Garcia's open, and I think he's very confident. And that 2-year break that he took, I think it opened his mind up and to let him know. He kind of knew that, he wasted a lot of time. And he's back with a purpose, and he's back focused, and he's looking better than ever. So there's a lot. There's a lot there for Mikey Garcia to do. And once again, it was a very good performance. Now, it might have looked even better than it could have, just because I don't believe Broner really pushed Garcia. But, that's not Mikey Garcia's fault. So, on the surface, Mikey Garcia looked excellent. And he was excellent. I mean, you can see it. The guy's just steady. Mr. Consistent, honestly. As for Broner, what's next? I mean, I'm sure they'll, there's another comeback story for Broner, another comeback plan for him. I'm sure he'll take a few fights and he'll get back in there with another big name, and I don't want to predict the future, but he'll probably lose depending on the opponent, because he's just not consistent enough. Obviously, I think he just needs to completely just switch trainers. He needs a new injection into his career. He did talk about moving out of Cincinnati. He moved his camp to Colorado Springs. He was in shape, and he didn't look sluggish or tired. He just lost to a clearly better fighter. He was in pretty good shape. So, he can make 140. But, you don't know what's next for him. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's going to be more opportunities for him, because there always seems to be. He's a name. He draws ratings, and he even said it after the fight. He's okay, which is probably another problem with him, that he thinks it's okay. It's not really okay to lose. I mean, it's okay to lose, but it feels like, just because the crowd is there to see you, Broner, or came out, that's not the win. You still have goals in boxing to be a great fighter. Maybe that's just not his goal. Maybe he's just smarter than all of us, and he's just going to milk and use his name to his advantage for as long as he can to leverage more paydays. And I think he'll continue to fight. He's only 28 years old. But, yeah, if he's going to want to – those purses are going to get smaller, though. I'll say that. He got $1 million for this fight. But if he's going to continue to fight and wants to make money, he's going to have to win some big fights. And, that's up to him to figure out. I will say this. I think he just needs to scrap his style altogether. If he's going to come with the high guard, I think, honestly, this is what I was thinking in my head. He should adopt, he should study Winky Wright. Winky was a guy that came in the high guard, had excellent defense behind the high guard, had a great jab, and a solid attack after that. I don't know how hard it would for Broner to implement that. Obviously, it's going to be hard, But, if you're going to not throw punches, just get rid of the whole being on the move stuff, because against a sound and smart boxer, that's not going to work. Now, in instances where you're fighting a guy who's extremely slow and just at a complete physical disadvantage, like when he fought John Molina, then you can do that moving stuff and it'll work for you probably. But against an elite guy like Mikey, a guy who's certain, it's not going to work. And we'll see. It'll be interesting to see. I think the Broner bandwagon is definitely emptying out. He's losing the lore. That's what happens when you lose 3 big fights, your 3 biggest fights. And it just seems he's just on the decline. He seems to be on the decline. He's just getting, he's just not, he's plateaued. Yeah. And he's on the decline in terms of like his effort and his performance levels, like I said, conditioning, and he looked good body wise, but his performance has been on the decline for many, many, many fights for years now. And this is just who he is, This is just who he is. He's still a name, and he's going to be an opponent. And I'm sure he could probably land another 2 or 3 big fights where he gets a big purse. But beyond that, at this point, he's just a gatekeeper. He's an opponent for other people. And we talked about that last week in the podcast. He's just an opponent right now. And, if he's comfortable with that, then that's fine with him. But, yeah, that's enough about this. That's enough. There's not much else to talk about with this fight. Mikey Garcia has a lot of options, and Broner has to go back to the drawing board. So there was also another fight on the card. It was a Charlo versus Highland. This was Jermall Charlo's debut at 160 pounds. Look, first things first, at the weigh-in, and then there was these photos that Showtime posted on their Instagram account. Jermall Charlo's, he already looks like a big 160-pounder. This guy is a freaking specimen. So he fought Highland, right? And Highland, I believe he's from Argentina. He kind of looked a little bit like Sergio Martinez. With the hairdo, and then he had that tattoo on his bicep, kind of like on his arm, right on his shoulder there, kind of like Martinez does. He wasn't no Sergio Martinez, but maybe he was. He looked like Sergio Martinez versus Cotto. He looked very gimpy to open this fight, and to close the fight too. He obviously had to have come in with some type of an injury. Highland, his legs were shaky. He was standing straight up. he was squared up. It's like he needed both of his legs directly under him to stay on balance. That's how awkward he looked. He looked hobbled when he was walking back after the first round. So yeah, Charlo landed some jabs, some power shots. Did he land an uppercut? I'm not sure. I don't remember. But yeah, I'm not even sure why this fight was allowed to go on after the second round. It's actually a credit to Highland that, one, he was able to keep his, well, he wasn't able to keep his balance, but he was actually able to stay on his feet. And then also take some of the power shots that he took from Charlo, because Charlo can punch pretty hard. So there's not much we can take from this fight. The only thing we can take from this fight is that Jermall Charlo looks physically great at 160 pounds. He looks sharp. He still looks explosive. He looks like he has his wits about him. He just looks very strong. Now, this fight makes Jermall Charlo the mandatory to the winner of Canelo and Golovkin. But Canelo's already come out and said he's not fighting for the WBC title. So pretty much he'll be fighting Golovkin if Golovkin's able to get past Canelo. But even that's not for sure. After if Golovkin gets a big win over Canelo, who knows how he manages his career after that. I would like to see that fight. Charlo's a big, fresh, strong guy, fighting Golovkin at 160. That would be a very interesting matchup for sure. But we'll see. Charlo's at 160 now. I don't know who else he could fight, though. If he's not, can Quillen get down to 160 to fight? I doubt it. He's done. Can they make Jermall Charlo versus Danny Jacobs? Those are both Heyman guys. That could be a Showtime fight. It seems very logical, but I don't know if they'll fight each other. Who knows? Probably not. I don't know who else they're going to get in at 160 for Charlo, but they'll find somebody. And, it'll be interesting to see him at this weight division and see how his power carries up. He had no problems with Highland, but Highland had problems coming into the fight. So he was obviously injured or something was wrong with him. He looked very Sergio Martinez-ish versus Cotto. So, yeah. And that's pretty much the night on Showtime Boxing. There were some preliminary fights, but I'm sure other people will cover those. I'm pretty sure other people will cover those. And that's about it. Make sure you guys check us out on Twitter, Instagram. We're on SoundCloud, iTunes, everything. Rate and review would be amazing and helpful. And we'll be back. And one last note. It is being rumored and tossed around on Twitter. It hasn't been official or confirmed yet, but Ring TV put an article out that Timothy Bradley is calling it quits. His last fight was last spring against Manny Pacquiao, and we all assumed at some point he would come back, but nothing hasn't materialized. It's been over a year. So, I guess it probably is true that he's retiring. And if so, good for Tim. He did suffer some neurological issues against Provodnikov. That was a very rough fight for him, but he continued to fight on for a few more years. And, Tim's been in some tough fights, and he's had a tough, hard-earned career. Nothing was given to him. He earned everything he got. And he was, a good personality, a good guy in the sport of boxing. So if he is gone, thank you, Timothy Bradley, because you offered some interesting moments in boxing history. I will say that. And his fight with Provodnikov is there's legacy defining fights and career defining fights, and that fight will always stand out. That, you know, he went to war with Provodnikov. He fought half the fight probably concussed, maybe 75% of the fight concussed. There's this sequence where he's on the ropes and he looks like he's almost knocked out on his feet, but he's still throwing flurries and throwing heat back at Provodnikov. It's just chilling stuff. I love that. Tim Bradley is a real dog. And I'm going to miss Tim Bradley Sr., you know, because he was very hilarious for other reasons. But yeah, if this is the end, you know, congratulations to Timothy Bradley on a tremendous career. Did a lot of work at 140. Did some decent work at 147, you know. And yeah, it was good. I would hope it's not the end, but you know, if he wants to call it quits, that's his prerogative. And I'm sure he knows his body the best. And it was fun while it lasted. I'll say that. So yeah, that's about it for this podcast. And we will see you guys soon. And catch you later.